Mama Adana sat in her leather chair, staring at the sprawling estate through her office window. The mansion stretched across 5 acres in the heart of Lagos, with marble fountains dancing in the afternoon sun. At 72 years old, she had built an empire from selling groundnuts on dusty streets to owning the largest textile company in West Africa. But today, something felt terribly wrong. "Sign here, mother," her eldest son Chikwudi said, sliding papers across her mahogany desk. His expensive cologne couldn't mask the greed in his eyes. "It's just the quarterly reports." Adana's wrinkled hands trembled as she reached for her reading glasses. Before she could examine the documents, her daughter Ngozi snatched them away. "Mother, you're getting old. Let us handle the business now," Ngozi said, her gold bangles clinking. "You've worked hard enough. Time to rest and enjoy your grandchildren." But Adana noticed something. In the reflection of the window, she saw Chikwudi and Ngozi exchange a knowing smile. Her heart sank. These were not quarterly reports. Her own children were trying to trick her into signing away her company. "Leave them on my desk. I'll review them tonight," Adana said firmly. Chikwidi's jaw tightened. "Mother, we don't have time for your stubbornness. The lawyers are waiting." "I said leave them." After her children stormed out, Adana called her trusted lawyer, Mr. Okonkwo. What he revealed made her blood run cold. Her children had been planning for months to declare her mentally unfit, seize control of her assets, and place her in a nursing home. The papers weren't quarterly reports. They were power of attorney documents that would strip her of everything. That night, Adana couldn't sleep. She walked through her mansion's empty halls, remembering how she'd sacrificed everything for her children. After her husband died 20 years ago, she'd worked 18-hour days to send them to the finest universities in London and America. She'd bought them houses, cars, and businesses. And this was her reward? She thought about her youngest daughter, Amara, who had died 5 years ago in a car accident. Amara had married a poor teacher named Jide against the family's wishes. Everyone had mocked her choice, especially Adana. When Amara died, Adana had blamed Jide for not being able to afford better health care. She'd refused to let Jide attend the funeral and had cut off all contact with him and her only granddaughter, 8-year-old Zara. The memory stung like a fresh wound. Had she been wrong about Jide? Had she been wrong about everything? At dawn, Adana made a decision that would change everything. She called Mr. Okonkwo again. "I need you to do something that will sound crazy," she said. "I want to disappear." "Madam, transfer all my assets into a secret trust. Tell my children I've lost everything. Bad investments, fraud, whatever sounds believable. I need to know who truly loves me and who only loves my money." Mr. Okonkwo was silent for a long moment. "This is dangerous, madam. Are you certain?" "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." Over the next 2 weeks, Mr. Okonkwo executed the plan perfectly. He created shell companies, fake bankruptcy documents, and even hired actors to play debt collectors. Adana watched from the shadows as her empire appeared to crumble. Chikwudi and Ngozi's reactions were predictable. They screamed, threatened lawyers, and accused their mother of being a foolish old woman. But Adana noticed something else. They never once asked if she was okay. They never asked where she would live or what she would eat. They only cared about the money. "You've ruined us," Ngozi shrieked during their final confrontation. "How could you be so stupid? We're the laughingstock of Lagos. Maybe you should get jobs," Adana suggested quietly. Chikwudi slammed his fist on the table. "Jobs? We're not common laborers, mother. We have reputations to maintain. Get out of my sight," Adana whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Both of you." That night, Adana packed a single bag with old clothes. She removed her jewelry, her expensive wig, and her designer shoes. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Without her wealth, who was she? The next morning, Mama Adana walked out of her mansion for the last time. Mr. Okonkwo had arranged a small apartment in a poor neighborhood across the city. But that wasn't where she was going first. She was going to test her children one final time. She would appear at their doorsteps as a beggar, broken and desperate, and see if any trace of love remained in their hearts. And if they failed, and she suspected they would, she had already set in motion a revenge that would destroy them in ways they couldn't imagine. As she walked through the gates of her estate, Adana transformed. She hunched her shoulders, dirted her face, and put on torn clothes. The security guard didn't even recognize her as she shuffled past. Mama Adana, the textile queen of Lagos, had disappeared. In her place walked a nameless beggar woman that nobody would look at twice. The game had begun. The Lagos sun beat down mercilessly as Adana stood outside her son Chikwuti's mansion in Victoria Island. She had walked for 2 hours, deliberately avoiding taxis or any comfort. Her feet ached in the worn sandals she'd bought from a roadside vendor, and sweat soaked through her faded wrapper. She needed to look completely broken, completely desperate. Taking a deep breath, Adana approached the golden gates. The security guard, a young man named Tund, looked at her with immediate suspicion. "Madam, what do you want?" he asked, his hand on his baton. "Please, I need to see Oga Chikwooti." "It's important," Adana said, disguising her voice to sound weaker, more desperate. Tund laughed. "See Oga? Look at yourself, old woman. Oga doesn't see beggars. Go away before I call the police." "Please," Adana begged, allowing real tears to fall. I'm his mother. I've lost everything. I just need help. Just food and a place to sleep." Tund's expression changed from amusement to disgust. "His mother? Mama Adana? Don't insult me with your lies. Mama Adana is a rich woman. She doesn't look like a street rat like you. Now go." But Adana had been loud enough. The commotion had attracted attention from inside the house. She saw the curtains move upstairs. Minutes later, Chikwuti's wife, Blessing, came to the gate, her nose wrinkled as if she smelled something rotten. "What is this noise?" Blessing demanded, her expensive lace outfit shimmering in the sunlight. "Madam, this beggar claims to be Mama Adana," Tund explained. Blessing's eyes widened, then narrowed. She studied Adana carefully. For a terrifying moment, Adana thought she'd been recognized. But then Blessing laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "You wicked woman. You want to scam us by pretending to be my mother-in-law? Mama Adana would never dress like this, never walk in the sun like a common person. Tund, remove this woman immediately." "But I am..." Adana started. "Shut up. The real Mama Adana destroyed our lives with her carelessness. She lost all her money and made us look like fools to society. Even if you were her, which you're not, we wouldn't help you. She deserves to suffer for what she did to our reputation. Now leave before I have you arrested." The gate slammed in Adana's face. Through the bars, she could see Blessing walking back to the house, already on her phone, probably calling her friends to laugh about the crazy beggar who just tried to scam them. Adana stood there, her legs shaking. This was her son's house. Her son, whom she'd carried for 9 months, nursed through malaria as a child, and sent to the best schools in the world. And his wife had just called her a wicked woman without a moment of doubt or compassion. But the real test was yet to come. Would Chikwoti himself respond differently? She waited for 2 hours under the scorching sun, hoping he'd come out, hoping he'd recognize her, hoping for any sign of love. Several times, she saw him through the upstairs window, talking on his phone, laughing. He never once looked down at the beggar waiting at his gate. As the sun began to set, Adana finally walked away, her heart heavier than the bag on her back. The next morning, she went to her daughter Ngozi's house in Ikoyi. The neighborhood was even more exclusive, with armed security at every corner. Ngozi had married a politician, Chief Emeka, and they lived like royalty. This time, Adana tried a different approach. She waited until she saw Ngozi leaving for her hair appointment. Her daughter never missed her weekly salon visit. As Ngozi's driver opened the car door, Adana rushed forward. "Ngozi, my daughter."
"Please, it's me."
"Your mother." Ngozi froze. She turned slowly, her expensive sunglasses reflecting Adana's bedraggled appearance. For a moment, just a brief, flickering moment, Adana thought she saw recognition in her daughter's eyes. "Mother?" Ngozi whispered. Hope surged in Adana's chest.
Yes.
"Yes, it's me. I've lost everything. I've been sleeping on the streets. You need money," Ngozi interrupted, her voice turning cold. "That's what you need, right? More money to lose on stupid investments? You're pathetic." "Ngozi, I'm your mother. My mother died the day she destroyed our family's name," Ngozi shouted, loud enough for neighbors to hear. "My mother was a smart businesswoman, not a foolish beggar. You must think I'm stupid, coming here with your schemes. I know what you're doing. You want me to give you money so you can waste it again. But I haven't eaten in days. Then go to a church. Go to a charity. But don't come to my house." Ngozi turned to her driver. "If this woman comes back, call the police. She's clearly mentally disturbed." As the car drove away, Adana collapsed onto the curb. 2 of her 3 children had rejected her. 2 of her own flesh and blood had looked at her suffering and felt nothing but contempt. But there was one more door to knock on. The door she'd slammed shut herself 5 years ago. The door of her late daughter's husband, Jide, the poor teacher she despised and blamed for Amara's death. That evening, Adana stood outside a modest apartment in Suralere, a middle-class neighborhood far from the luxury of Victoria Island and Ikoyi. The building was old but clean, with children playing football in the compound. She could hear sounds of life everywhere, mothers cooking, radios playing, neighbors gossiping. This was where Jide lived with her granddaughter Zara, the granddaughter she'd never met, the family she'd rejected. Adana raised her hand to knock, but hesitated. What if they slammed the door too? What if the last thread of her family rejected her, just like the others? But she had nowhere else to go. She knocked 3 times. The door opened, and Adana found herself staring into the eyes of a little girl, 13 years old now, with her late daughter Amara's exact smile. "Yes, Ma?" Zara asked politely. Before Adana could speak, a man appeared behind Zara. Jide. He'd aged since she'd last seen him, with more gray in his hair and deeper lines around his eyes. He was wearing a simple shirt and trousers, clearly just home from teaching. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Adana saw something she hadn't seen in her other children's eyes, recognition mixed with something unexpected. Compassion. Jide stared at the beggar woman on his doorstep, his expression unreadable. Adana held her breath, waiting for the door to slam like all the others. Waiting for the rejection she probably deserved more from him than anyone else. "Zara, go inside and finish your homework," Jide said quietly, never taking his eyes off Adana. "But Papa, now please." The little girl obeyed, casting one more curious glance at the strange woman before disappearing into the apartment. When they were alone, Jide stepped outside and closed the door behind him. They stood in the narrow corridor, the sounds of the neighborhood echoing around them. "Mama Adana," Jide said finally. Not a question. A statement. Adana's legs nearly gave out. You recognize me? "I recognized you the moment you knocked. I've seen your face every day for 13 years, in my wife's photo, in my daughter's smile." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "Amara talked about you constantly. I know every feature of your face, even under all that dirt and those ragged clothes." Tears streamed down Adana's face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. For blaming you. For keeping Zara from you at the funeral. Why are you here?" Jide interrupted, but his tone wasn't harsh. It was sad. "I've lost everything," Adana whispered, and for the first time, she told the complete truth. She explained the fake bankruptcy, her children's betrayal, and her plan to test them. She told him about the doors slammed in her face, the guards who chased her away, and her daughter who denied her. Jide listened without interrupting, his face growing darker with each revelation. "So you came here as a last resort," he said when she finished. "Not because you wanted to see your granddaughter or make amends, but because you had nowhere else to go." Adana hung her head.
Yes. I'm sorry.
"I know I don't deserve your help. I didn't know where else to turn." The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Finally, Jide spoke. Amara would never forgive me if I turned you away. He opened the door. Come inside. Clean yourself up. Eat something. But after tonight, we need to talk about what happens next. Adana couldn't believe what she was hearing. You're helping me? I'm not doing this for you, Jide said firmly. I'm doing it because my wife taught me that family isn't about blood alone, it's about humanity. Something your other children clearly forgot. Inside the small apartment, Adana felt like she'd entered a different world. The space was tiny compared to her mansions, just 2 bedrooms, a small living room, and a kitchen. But it was filled with warmth. Photos of Amara covered the walls, including pictures Adana had never seen. Amara pregnant, Amara holding baby Zara, Amara laughing on her wedding day. Zara watched from her bedroom doorway, confusion written all over her young face. Zara, Jide called gently. This is your grandmother. Your mother's mother. The girl's eyes went wide. My grandmother? But I thought. I know what you thought, Jide said. But sometimes adults make mistakes. Even grandmothers. Adana couldn't speak. She just stood there, looking at this beautiful child, this piece of her beloved Amara that she'd rejected out of pride and anger. Zara approached slowly, studying Adana with the intense focus of a child trying to solve a puzzle. You look like Mama, she said finally. In the old photos. You have the same eyes. Those words broke something inside Adana. She collapsed onto the worn couch, sobbing uncontrollably. All the pain, all the betrayal, all the regret came flooding out. Zara looked at her father, confused. Jide nodded, and the little girl slowly approached her grandmother, placing a small hand on her shoulder. It's okay, Zara whispered. Papa says it's always okay to cry when you're sad. Jide disappeared into the bathroom and returned with a bucket of warm water and a towel. There's soap and clean clothes in the bathroom.
Take your time.
Zara and I will prepare dinner. As Adana cleaned herself, she could hear Jide and Zara talking in the kitchen, their voices a gentle murmur punctuated by the clatter of pots and pans. The normalcy of it, the simple domesticity, made her realize how empty her mansions had been, despite all their luxury. When she emerged, wearing one of Amara's old dresses that Jide had kept, she found a simple meal waiting. Jollof rice, fried plantains, and chicken. Nothing fancy, but the aroma made her mouth water. She hadn't eaten a proper meal in 3 days. They ate in silence at first, but Zara's natural curiosity eventually broke through. Grandmother, why do you look so thin? Haven't you been eating? Zara, Jide warned gently. It's okay, Adana said. I haven't been eating well, sweetheart. I've been going through some difficulties. Papa says difficulties make us stronger, Zara announced. Like when Mama died. We were sad, but we became stronger together. Adana's hand trembled around her fork. Your father is a wise man. After dinner, Jide sent Zara to bed and made tea for himself and Adana. They sat in the small living room, the weight of 5 years of silence between them. I need to know your plan, Jide said finally. This test of yours. What happens when it's over? What happens to those children who failed? Adana had been thinking about this constantly. I'm going to expose them.
Publicly.
I'm going to show Lagos society who they really are. And then I'm going to take back everything and make sure they never see a kobo of my money. Revenge, Jide said quietly. Justice, Adana corrected. There's a difference. They deserve to pay for what they've done. Not just to me, but to everyone they've hurt climbing to the top. Chikwuti's business is built on exploiting workers. Ngozi's husband is corrupt. They're rotten, Jide. And I enabled them by giving them everything without making them work for anything. Jide was quiet for a long moment. And what about Zara? When you reclaim your empire, when you expose your children, when you return to your world of wealth and power, what happens to her? To us? The question hit Adana like a physical blow. She hadn't thought that far ahead. I don't know. That's what I thought. Jide stood up. You can stay here while you figure out your plan. But Mama Adana, if you're going to be in Zara's life, You need to be all in. Not just when it's convenient. Not just when you have nowhere else to go. That little girl has already lost one grandmother because of your pride. I won't let her lose another. Over the next 2 weeks, Adana lived in Jide's spare room, a tiny space that had been used for storage. She helped with housework, walked Zara to school, and began to understand the life her daughter Amara had chosen. It was simple, but it was filled with something her mansion had never had: genuine love. She watched Jide work extra hours to afford Zara's school fees. She saw him help neighbors with their problems, even when he had his own struggles. She witnessed the respect people in the community had for him, not because of his wealth or status, but because of his character. And slowly, painfully, Adana realized the truth. She hadn't just failed with Chikwudi and Ngozi. She'd failed with all her children. She taught them that money was love, that success was more important than character, that appearing wealthy was better than being kind. But she'd also learned something else during those 2 weeks. She'd learned that it wasn't too late to change. And she'd learned that the revenge she'd planned, the public humiliation, the complete destruction of her children, might not be the answer. One evening, as she helped Zara with homework, her granddaughter asked a simple question that changed everything. "Grandmother, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do with it?" Adana thought carefully. "What do you think I should do with it?" "I think you should help people who need it. Like Papa helps his students even when they can't pay. Like Mama used to take food to the old people in our old neighborhood." Zara smiled. "Money is only good if it makes other people happy, right?" Out of the mouths of children, Adana thought. Her granddaughter had just taught her what she'd spent 72 years failing to understand. That night, Adana called Mr. Okonkwo and changed her plan. The revenge would still happen. Her children needed to learn their lesson. But it would be different now. It would be about transformation, not just destruction. The game was about to enter its final phase. And this time, Adana wasn't playing to win. She was playing to teach a lesson that would echo through generations. 3 months had passed since Mama Adana knocked on Jide's door. In that time, she'd become a fixture in the small apartment, cooking breakfast, walking Zara to school, and slowly rebuilding the relationship she'd thrown away 5 years ago. But every night, she and Mr. Okonkwo worked on the final phase of her plan. The invitation was simple but elegant, delivered by courier to every major household in Lagos's elite circles. Mama Adana cordially invites you to the grand reopening of Adana Textiles and a special announcement regarding her estate. Cocktails at 6 p.m., Federal Palace Hotel. In Chikwidi's mansion, the invitation caused chaos. "It's impossible," he shouted at his wife. "Mother lost everything. This has to be a scam." But Blessing wasn't so sure. "What if it's not? What if she somehow got the business back? We should go. We need to find out what's happening." Ngozi had a similar reaction. "This is humiliating," she told Chief Emeka. "People will ask where we've been while Mother was rebuilding. They'll think we abandoned her." "Then we spin it," Chief Emeka said smoothly. He was a politician. He knew how to control narratives. "We say we were giving her space to prove herself. We say we were always there in the background, supporting her. Who's going to contradict us?" Neither Chikwudi nor Ngozi knew that in a modest apartment in Surulere, their mother was putting on one of Amara's old dresses while Zara helped with her makeup. "You look beautiful, grandmother," Zara said, carefully applying lipstick. "Like in the old photos with Mama." Jide stood in the doorway, wearing his only suit. Adana had insisted he and Zara attend, though he'd resisted at first. "This is your world, Mama Adana." "Not ours," he'd said. "You're wrong," Adana had replied. "This is everyone's world. And it's time people understood that." The Federal Palace Hotel's ballroom glittered with Lagos's elite. Business moguls, politicians, socialites, everyone who was anyone had come to witness Mama Adana's resurrection. The whispers were deafening. "I heard she was living on the streets. Someone said she'd gone mad. How did she get her money back?" At precisely 6 o'clock, the lights dimmed. A spotlight illuminated the stage where Mama Adana stood, regal in a traditional osso oak wrapper and blouse, her silver hair styled elegantly. She looked every inch the textile queen she'd always been. The room fell silent. "Good evening," Adana began, her voice strong and clear. "Thank you for coming. I know many of you have heard rumors about my downfall, my bankruptcy, my disappearance. Tonight, I'm here to tell you the truth." In the audience, Chikwudi and Ngozi shifted uncomfortably. Something felt wrong. 3 months ago, I made a decision. I wanted to know who truly loved me and who only loved my money. So I arranged to lose everything, or at least to appear to lose everything. I became a beggar and went to my children's doors. A collective gasp swept through the room. Several people pulled out their phones to record. My eldest son, Chikwudi, had his security guard chase me away like a dog. His wife called me a wicked woman who deserved to suffer. Adana's voice remained steady, but tears glistened in her eyes. My daughter, Ngozi, told me I was pathetic and ordered her driver to call the police if I returned. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Chikwudi jumped to his feet. "Mother, this is madness. We didn't know it was you. You were testing us with tricks and lies." "Sit down," Adana commanded, and the authority in her voice made him obey instantly. "You didn't recognize me because you never truly saw me. You only saw my wallet. But there was one person who recognized me immediately. One person who took me in, fed me, and gave me a place to sleep despite having every reason to hate me." She gestured to the side of the stage, where Jide and Zara emerged into the spotlight. My son-in-law, Jide, whom I blamed for my daughter's death, whom I forbade from attending Amara's funeral, whom I cut off completely because I thought he wasn't good enough for my family. He saw through my disguise in seconds and still showed me mercy. Jide looked uncomfortable with the attention, but he held Zara's hand and stood tall. "This is my granddaughter, Zara. She's 13 years old. I missed her entire childhood because of my pride. But she and her father taught me something in these past 3 months, something I'd forgotten in all my years of building wealth. They taught me that true richness isn't measured in bank accounts or properties. It's measured in character, in compassion, in the willingness to help someone even when they don't deserve it." Adana paused, letting her words sink in. "So, tonight, I'm making several announcements. First, I am not bankrupt. Every naira I supposedly lost has been safely held in trust. Adana Textiles is stronger than ever." Relief flooded Chikwudi and Ngozi's faces, until Adana continued. "Second, I'm changing my will. Chikwudi, Ngozi, you will each receive 1 million naira. That's what I started with 40 years ago when I was selling groundnuts on the street. If you're truly my children, if you have any of my blood in you, you'll use that money to build something meaningful. But you'll do it without any further help from me." "Mother, no." Ngozi screamed. "You can't do this. We're your children." "Yes, you are. And I failed you. I gave you everything without making you work for anything. I taught you that money was more important than people. That's my fault, and I'm trying to correct it now. The courts will fight this." Chikwudi shouted. "We'll sue. Try," Adana said calmly. "Mr. Okonkwo has ensured everything is ironclad. But I hope you won't waste your 1 million naira on lawyers." She turned back to the audience. "Third, I'm establishing the Amara Foundation in memory of my late daughter. 60% of my wealth will go to this foundation, which will provide education, healthcare, and business training to underprivileged communities throughout Nigeria. Jide will serve as director." Jide's eyes widened in shock. "Mama, Adana, I can't. You can, and you will. You've proven yourself trustworthy. Besides, you'll need the resources to give Zara the opportunities she deserves." "And the remaining 40%, someone in the audience called out. Adana smiled. "Will be split between various charities and a trust fund for Zara's future. My granddaughter will inherit when she turns 25, but only if she demonstrates the character and compassion her father has shown. If she becomes like her uncle and aunt, caring only for money, the inheritance will revert to the Amara Foundation." The room exploded with conversation. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But Adana only had eyes for her two eldest children, who sat frozen in their seats, their faces masks of shock and fury. "I want you to understand something," Adana said, speaking directly to them now. "I'm not punishing you out of cruelty. I'm punishing you out of love. The love I should have shown you years ago by teaching you the right values. You can hate me for this. You probably will. But maybe someday you'll understand." Chikwudi and Ngozi stood up and stormed out of the ballroom, their spouses scrambling to follow. The gossip would be brutal, Adana knew. The social media posts, the newspaper articles, the judgment from their peers, it would be humiliating. But it was necessary. After the event ended and most guests had left, Adana sat in the empty ballroom with Jide and Zara. Her granddaughter had fallen asleep on Jide's lap, exhausted by the evening's drama. "You've just made yourself very unpopular with your children," Jide said quietly. "I know. They may never forgive you. I know that too." Adana wiped tears from her eyes. "But maybe their children will turn out better. Maybe this will break the cycle. Or maybe they'll prove you wrong," Jide suggested. "Maybe they'll take that ₦1,000,000 and surprise you. Maybe." Adana didn't sound convinced. "But at least I've given them the chance to find out who they really are without my money protecting them." 2 weeks later, Adana received an envelope. Inside was a brief note from Chikwudi. "Mother, you've destroyed our lives and our reputations. I will never forgive you for this humiliation. But I will prove you wrong. I will build something from that ₦1,000,000. Not for you. Not to earn back my inheritance. But to show you that I am more than you think I am. Your son." Adana clutched the letter to her chest and wept. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was something. It was a starting point. Ngozi's response came a month later. Not a letter, but a report from Mr. Okonkwo. She'd used her ₦1,000,000 to start a catering business, something she'd always wanted to do, but had been too proud to pursue. The business was small, but it was hers, built with her own hands. Would her children ever truly change? Adana didn't know, but she'd given them the tools. The rest was up to them. 6 months after that dramatic night at the Federal Palace Hotel, Mama Adana sat in Jide's living room, though it wasn't Jide's living room anymore. She'd bought them a proper house in a good neighborhood, nothing too extravagant, but comfortable. Zara had her own room, and there was even a garden where Adana grew vegetables. "Grandmother, come see," Zara called from the garden. "The tomatoes are ready." As Adana joined her granddaughter in the afternoon sun, she realized something profound. She'd spent 72 years building an empire, only to discover that true wealth had been waiting in a modest apartment all along, in the love of a son-in-law she'd wronged and a granddaughter she'd abandoned. She'd lost 2 children to greed, but perhaps given them a chance to find themselves. And she'd gained a family she'd almost destroyed forever. The revenge was complete, but it didn't taste like she'd expected. It didn't taste bitter or sweet. It tasted like hope, the hope that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what truly matters. In her pocket, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Mother, I'd like to meet Zara. If you're willing." Ngozi. Adana smiled through her tears. Maybe, just maybe, this story wasn't over yet. Maybe this was just the beginning of a new chapter. One written not in account books and property deeds, but in second chances and the slow, painful work of rebuilding what should have never been broken. And as she watched Zara laugh in the garden, surrounded by growing things and golden sunlight, Mama Adana finally understood the lesson she'd paid so dearly to learn. The richest person in the room isn't the one with the most money. It's the one with the most love. And love, unlike wealth, can never be lost, only given away and, with patience and grace, earned back again.